Hey, I'm Chris, and this is MMA for You. I'm going to be doing my predictions for UFC 105, Lewis versus Browne, which happens on February 19th. I know I said I wouldn't do any of these small shows, but I figure I did pretty good with my picks in the last two events. It was kind of late with that UFC 208 predictions getting out there, so I figure I'll give you guys, you know, another prediction video. They don't have an official bout order on this, so I'm just gonna go with how uh, how it was lined up in the like UFC.com. I think all I know is that like Ryan James versus Gerald Meerschaert is in the UFC Fight Pass prelims, and then we know what the main event and the co-main. So we'll work with that. But before I get into that, I'd like to plug a couple things. First thing would be my author's website at www.chrismoldon.com. Next thing I'd like to plug is Chris's Storytelling Corner, which is my storytelling podcast. Links to find these will be provided on the description. So, on to this card. I actually kind of like this card, actually. Some fun action fights, some fun action fighters. Got a pretty decent women's fight, actually. Well, it might even just be a showcase for McMann. A lot of action fighters, though. Paul Felder, action fighter. He's fighting Ricci, Alessandro Ricci. Thiago Santos versus Jack Marshman. Those guys are action fighters. Ponzinibbio Taleb could be fun. Ferreira Theodorou could be fun. Gavin Tucker, man, I watched some video of that guy. That's a lot of fun to watch. Hendricks versus Lombard. I it's hard for me to see that as a grinder, and I can see that taking place on the feet. And then Lewis versus Browne. I can see that taking place on the feet too. I can see a finish in that fight. James versus Meerschaert is actually a pretty good fight too. I think both those guys are pretty fun fighters. Vieira, Zahabi. At the very least, they're not grinders, so that could be fun too. So, and Esparza Markos, I can see that be something of a grind, just because like Esparza is mainly a grinder. So, yeah, let's just get started. Okay, the main event: Derrick Lewis fights Travis Browne. So, here's the thing with Derrick Lewis. I love the guy. I think the guy is strong as one of the strongest heavyweights in the division, and his technique is terrible. This guy's takedown defense is non existent. His ability to get back to his feet when he's taken down is really good in the most untechnical way. I mean, if like he'll stick his hand, he'll be in side mount, stick his hand out to push against the face, and just get back to his feet by exposing his back. But because he's so strong, being able to push against a guy is enough. So you actually see in his fights, especially when he fought like Roy Nelson, dude go get taken down all the time and just like in the most sloppy way possible get back to his feet, and they can't take advantage. Standing, he's all right. I mean, he isn't super technical standing, but he hits really hard. Most dangerous place that Derrick Lewis is in my opinion, dude. If he's on top of you and he's throwing ground and pound, you're done. That is just like, uh, you might as well just get finished. He's fighting Travis Browne, who has been on a downslope. I will say this though, from what I hear, he is not training at Glendale Fighting Club. He is training at a Black House for this fight, so that's good. For all of Travis Browne's faults, training under Edmund, um, who I think he said he's still his coach. Um, he can take fights to the ground if need be, and at one time his stand up was pretty good, a bit unorthodox, but he hit hard. Now he's like a very undefined fighter. You know, you don't really know what he's good at. He's tall. His chin, his chin used to be freaking granite, and then he's just been in wars. You know, he fought like Arlovsky, He had the Warth Arlovsky, got knocked out by Cain Velasquez, and got like dropped by like Verdum a second time. So his chin has been getting cracked as of late. Despite that, though, I just think that Travis Browne is just even at this point of Travis Browne's like trajectory. I still think he's a more technical fighter. I think he'll be able to also take the fight to the ground if need be. He's actually a bit underrated on top. When he gets on top, he actually looks to pass a dominant position, mainly mount. And once he gets a mount, man, he's pretty strong there. His ground and pound's quite solid. So with that said, I am gonna go with Travis Browne to win this one by KO or TKO. Next right after that, Johny Hendricks fights Hector Lombard. Very interesting fight. This is at middleweight, and they're two of the shorter middleweights of the division. Um, Both these guys are pretty strong guys too. Hector Lombard especially. Biggest problem with Hector Lombard is his cardio. He does have a really strong judo background. Has a good takedown ability, but the problem with Lombard is that once he takes opponents down, he generally just grinds if he's on top. Um, Standing, he has that one round blitz, which has been pretty effective. But as of late, there's guys like Magny or even Dan Henderson that have been able to, quote unquote, weather the storm, allow him to punch himself out, and then beat Lombard. And Lombard finally got knocked out by Dan Anderson in his last fight. Hits like a truck. Primarily a counterpuncher. If he finds the opening, he will swarm. Let's find Johny Hendricks, who is a really strong wrestler. I think he's going to do relatively well in this division, just in the fact that he's going to have to cut all that weight. But he's going to be kind of small for the division. His power is gone. Like, he used to have like that incredible, was it a left hand? Yeah, he used to have this like crazy left hand that would just drop people left and right. That's gone now. He still has the wrestling, as shown in his fight against Neil Magny, but he doesn't always do much if he takes his opponent down. Cardio-wise, I think Hendricks is the better of the two, and at 185, I think his cardio is going to hold up a lot better as well. Hendricks' chin has actually shown to be quite stout. The only time that he's been knocked out was by Stephen Thompson, right? If I'm not mistaken. Otherwise, he's always shown a pretty good chin. And his takedown defense has always been pretty strong, too. He's a hard guy to take down. Hard guy to keep down if you do somehow manage to take him down. With that said, I like Johny Hendricks here. I think he can actually win. I think he might even be able to finish Hector Lombard. I'll say it right now, just by tiring out Lombard and outlasting him. So yeah, I think he outlasts him. I think he might even be able to take Lombard down in the later rounds, and like rounds late, rounds 2, maybe in round 3. It's just a typical Hector Lombard thing. Just weather the early storm and then get the better of him from there. So I'm gonna go Johny Hendricks to win by I'll go KO or TKO. Next right after that, Sam Sicilia fights Gavin Tucker. So Sam Sicilia, guy hits hard. He's mainly good on the inside and has a pretty underrated grappling game. He'll go for the front choke. His overall wrestling, takedown defense, and offensive takedown ability isn't bad, but it's not great either. He can kind of do a little bit of everything with some level of technical acumen. He's just kind of a tough guy. He's always been something of the gatekeeper type at this point. Gavin Tucker, I actually watched 2 fights of his, and I saw I saw 1 fight of his, but I saw his highlight video, which also includes some of his grappling matches. I like what I see from this guy. He's very aggressive. He hits hard, and he has a pretty good ground game to boot too. There's a lot to like with Tufker with his aggression and his power, and just actually he's shown some pretty good technique. So, and the thing with Sam Sicilia is that he's good enough everywhere, but he's just he's nothing about him really particularly stands out. So with that said, I like Gavin Tucker to win this one. By finish too. I'll go Gavin Tucker to win this one. Possible sub, knock him down and sub him, which is possible. I'll go Gavin Tucker to win by KO or TKO. I was impressed with his stand up. Cecilia is not a guy that can fight at range. He's just not good there. And, he's been knocked out before. Sam Cecilia has. So, yeah, I'll go Gavin Tucker by KO or TKO. Next fight after that, Cezar Ferreira fights Elias Theodorou. Theodorou is really interesting in the sense that, he's not particularly good at any one aspect of MMA. Standing, he's real awkward. Awkward footwork. In his fight against Sam Alvey, he fought a smart fight where he just kicked from long range and pretty much ran away. His hands aren't the greatest. He is a strong guy. His takedown ability is good, but it's not great. He's not like a wrestler or anything like that. He has some pretty good ground and pound, and like I said, he can outwork opponents. Cezar Ferreira, this guy has been turning the corner. His last fight was real good stuff. His stand-up looked on point. Defense looked better. He's able to take opponents down and time his takedowns. Went for that really nifty arm triangle as well. I really think that Cezar Ferreira is actually turning a corner. He's a guy whose chin is still not very good, but his hands look to actually improve. The biggest problem with Cezar Ferreira is the guy was just terrible. And he very well still could be, but I don't think Elias Theodorou is the guy to exploit it. But Cezar Ferreira was just terrible at boxing range. I mean, you get in boxing range, and he is so easy to drop. And most guys, if he gets dropped or finished, it's in some form of boxing range. Cezar Ferreira is a really good kicker. Capoeira background, along with a really good. He actually has, and of course his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is pretty good too. And he has a background there too. So, but he's strongest at kicking range. So that should actually be interesting too, because Elias Theodorou is actually strongest standing from kicking range as well. Interesting fight, but I think that Cezar Ferreira at this point has just put it all together more, whereas Elias Theodorou is still trying to put it all together. He's still a bit awkward with where his feet are. If he throws a combination, he'll run at opponents at times. He fought a smart fight against Alvey, which is good. Which is actually, as boring as it was a smart fight, and that's, smart fights get you wins, But everything else, it's just, he's really unpolished at this point, whereas, Ferreira at this point, I think is a little more polished. He can time takedowns pretty well. He can stand with his opponent. So with that said, I'm going to go for Cezar Ferreira to win this one. But I'll go decision. So right after that, Santiago Ponzinibbio fights Nordine Taleb. Fun fight here. I have been impressed with Nordine Taleb. He's been a guy that's honestly just been very consistent. Is not a standout anywhere, but but he has been steadily improving. His stand-up especially has been improving. He's been finding a good amount of power lately too, even more so than before. And his ground game's pretty good too. Everything is just good. There's nothing about him that is a particular weakness. But he's fighting Santiago Ponzinibbio, who also has been steadily improving. He also showed in his last fight, he fought Zach Cummings, who is one of the more tougher at big for the division and just one of the tougher outs, and he just outspeed him. Uh, he throws Ponzinibbio throws in combination. Uh, yeah, well, yeah, he went in, threw, and then he'd get out. Um, he also hits real hard, and his grappling game, takedown defense, and whatnot has actually been looking pretty good as of late. Should be a fun fight, or I would think it'd be a pretty fun fight. I can see it staying standing, but overall, I think Ponzinibbio is kind of the guy that's slowly but surely breaking into that top 15. His stand-up looks good. He's hitting real hard. His grappling isn't bad. His takedown defense isn't bad. Nordine Taleb is a guy that's steadily improving, but like I said, he's solid but not spectacular. And I think Ponzinibbio might even have something of an edge in the stand-up against Nordine Taleb. So I'll go Santiago Ponzinibbio to win. The guy hits real hard, so I'm going to go by KO or TKO. Next fight after that, Carla Esparza fights Randa Markos. Randa Markos is a brawler who honestly has some good wrestling when she decides to use it, but otherwise, and has a good chin too, because she just eats a lot of punches and pushes forward. She is still extremely untechnical, and despite having some wrestling background, it is quite easy to actually take down too. And the thing with Carla Esparza is she's kind of small for the weight division. She's the first UFC Women's Strawweight Champion, but she is just primarily a wrestler. I mean, she doesn't have a lot of power in her striking. Doesn't seem to have a lot of confidence in her striking either. But she'll take opponents down. She has a knack for taking the back. And if she needs to grind, she will grind. So, with that said, I think Carla Esparza is going to be able to take Markos down. I think she can grind on her as well. I'm going to go Carla Esparza to win this one by decision. Next after that, Reginaldo Vieira fights Aiemann Zahabi. So Aiemann Zahabi is wait, is it Aiemann? I just watched some of his fights too, and I was like, I made sure to listen to the announcer to get his name right. I think it's Aiemann. If it's not, I'm sorry. Wow, I should have remembered that. I just watched his fights too. All fights first round finishes. I saw one of his fights. I think it was his like fourth fight because he doesn't have a lot of fights. And one thing that's really interesting with excuse me, with Zahabi is that in that fight I saw, he was looking like very much a tri-star fighter. Where what I mean, heavy jab, but he is a finisher. Actually won one of his fight by is that ankle lock, I think. I saw that fight actually. His ground game is actually pretty good. Everything about him is pretty good. His wrestling's good. He can finish by sub. And his striking is composed. There's a word I'm looking for. It's a really composed, patient striking style. He'll just go in there, throw the occasional jab, follow it up with a cross or whatnot. Actually has a pretty good kick as well. And yeah, it just looks like a composed tri-star fighter. He's fighting Reginaldo Vieira, who standing isn't the most composed guy. Has a really good guillotine, and there's not much else I can really say about the guy. You know, he's kind of, I think he won a season of Tough, right? And otherwise has just looked alright. I can't say much about him. One thing that is a bit worrisome with Zahabi is that he's never been past the first round as a pro. That is always a red flag because you don't know what he's like when he's in trouble, really. And you don't really know his cardio. With that said, I mean, he's fighting a very, I guess, nondescript fighter in a sense with Reginaldo Vieira. Who, like I said, good guillotine, decent standing, but not nothing particularly standoutish. You know, Vieira's good on the ground, but I believe he got subbed in his last fight, right? Against the against that Latin America fighter. Um, with that said, I like the composure of Zahabi here, and the fact that he's a finisher does help. So I'll go with Aiemann Zahabi to win. I'll go by KO or TKO. So after that, Thiago Marreta Santos fights Jack Marshman. Oh, fun fight here. Marshman, good boxer. He has good hands, and his wrestling actually isn't that bad as far as like takedown defense and whatnot. He's always pushing forward. So, yeah, I think Jack Marshman is a solid fighter and a particularly solid boxer for the middleweight division. Thiago Marreta Santos, he lost against Eric Spicer. He got taken down and got subbed. But, you know, before that, he was showing really strong Muay Thai. You know, good knees from the clinch, really good body kick, and just some real power in his strikes. Um, Takedown defense actually looked pretty good up until the Spicy fight. He, he said he got an injury somewhere along in that fight, and that's why he didn't couldn't defend the takedown really well. But the fact of the matter is, um, he hasn't been fighting great wrestlers, too, so that could also be a thing. Otherwise, I like his variety of strikes. He does hit hard. Be interesting that when he fights a guy like Marshman, though, he has pretty solid hands. I'd say Marshman has better hands, whereas Santos has like the better knees, kicks. Arguably the more powerful of the two, arguably, and can't really see the fight hit the ground. With that said, tough one to call, but I like Thiago Marreta Santos to win this one. Despite his loss to Spicely, I still think he's a very good fighter. Um, I don't know if he's going to be stuck in middleweight limbo. At one point, he actually seemed like a guy that could break into the top 10. So, I'll go Thiago Marreta Santos. Marshman's pretty tough, so I'll just go by decision. So right after that, Paul Felder fights Alessandro Ricci. Alessandro Ricci, well, he lost that one fight against, yikes, I forgot. He was a guy that just got grinded up against a cage by that one fighter whose name absolutely escapes me at this point. Otherwise, I remember seeing some of the stuff from Ricci. His hands aren't too bad. You know, he can wrestle a bit too. He's fighting Paul Felder, who has shown to be not the prospect that I think at once he like knocked out Castillo. I think people, including myself, were really high on him. He's still a guy that needs some work technically. He's not the quickest striker. One thing I noticed about him, he hits real hard, but he's not real quick too. Um, he, he does have heavy hands. He will throw some pretty good knees to stop the takedown, and his overall grappling is steadily improving. Like his takedown defense and overall just grappling ability is improving. I wish I could say more about Ricci. It's just he's another one of those like kind of nondescript fighters of the division, of his weight division. Not doesn't particularly stand out in any one area of MMA. Felder, he will go for the spinning strikes. And with that said, I'll go with Paul Felder to win this one. Hmm. I'll just go by decision to be safe. Next round, that Gina Mazzani fights Sara McMann. I couldn't find any other fights of Gina Mazzani except her Ultimate Fighter bout against it was against Pena, and she just got taken down. And Pena was just on top of her. So that doesn't tell me much, except the fact that she is able to get taken down, and McMann is able to take opponents down. Really, she had a good fight against Alexis Davis and got that really nice arm triangle against her. It's a really good move for someone like McMann, whose top game looks to actually be steadily improving. One thing about Sara McMann that I'm always critical of, and she's been showing some improvement with it though, is that she doesn't throw enough ground and pound. Like, she just grinds. Her stand up actually, like McMahon's stand up actually isn't, well, she does strike a bit off balance, but when she does connect, she actually hits pretty hard. But the name of her game is wrestling. And with that said, I haven't seen a lot of Mazzani, but 4-0 versus someone as experienced as McMann, I can see McMann getting the takedown, working the top game, and maybe even getting a sub again. So yeah, I'll go with Sara McMann. I'll even go by sub. And finally, Ryan James versus Gerald Mearshart. So Ryan James had that one fight against that one guy. I forgot his name. What Ryan James showed was high pressure, pretty high volume striking. He's like 6'3", but has like no defense standing. I mean, he just doesn't have a lot of head movement. And which is really interesting because most of his wins are actually by sub. But in his last fight, he decided to trade with his opponent. Showed a good chin, high volume, and pretty fearless. Gerald Mearshart, he fought Joe Gelati his last fight, and this guy has a lot of experience. He's like 34 and 8 or something like that versus Ryan James, who's like 9 and 1, I think, if I'm something like that. So Mearshart has really good experience. Trains out of Rufus Sport. One thing I like about Mearshart is that he's just really composed. Like, he fought Joe Gelati on short notice, first one in the UFC, and the dude's composure was really good. He didn't rush anything. He just showed good. Standing was good. His stand-up was solid. It looks like there wasn't a position that he was unfamiliar with, too. So that was really good. And then he won with a really nice anaconda. Yeah, it was an anaconda choke. It was really nifty because he went from he took the back and then he transitioned to the anaconda. It was really nice, really good stuff. It's tough to say. The height difference is like 6'3". Ryan James is 6'3", whereas Mearshart is like 6'1". So that's something that Mearshart's going to have to overcome. I like Mearshart's composure, but I like James's aggression and just fearlessness. If this fight hits ground, that should be really interesting. Mearshart's got a lot of wins by submission, and so does Ryan James. So, but I got to go with experience and composure here. So I'm gonna go with Gerald Mearshart to win this one. I'll go by decision. Yeah, I'll just go by decision, but interesting fight. Real interesting fight, actually. So, to recap, I have Travis Browne beating Derrick Lewis by KO or TKO. Johny Hendricks over Hector Lombard by KO or TKO. Gavin Tucker over Sam Sicilia by KO or TKO, possible sub. Cezar Ferreira over Elias Theodorou by decision. Santiago Ponzinibbio over Nordine Taleb. I think I called KO or TKO. Carla Esparza beating Randa Markos by decision. Aiemann Zahabi over Reginaldo Vieira I went by K or Tika if I'm not mistaken. Thiago Marreta Santos over Jack Marshman by decision. Paul Felder over Alessandro Ricci by decision. Sarah McMann over Gina Mazzani by submission. And Gerald Mearshart over Ryan James by decision. So, that's pretty much it for my predictions for UFC Fight Night 105. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And please check out my author's website at www.chrismaldon.com. Check out my storytelling podcast, Chris's Storytelling Corner, as well. And that's pretty much it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.